All right, cool. Let's continue basically from Saturday's lecture. All right, so looking at price currently, right, it makes all the sense in the world why we are now below here, right? So what we wanted to see basically as soon as we opened up market, as we opened up for the week basically, was whether or not we were going to come in and take out this low, and whether we were going to eventually come for this next target, right? Which is essentially where we're targeting now. And it could be interesting in terms of, let's see, in terms of whether we just straight up take liquidity or, you know, we essentially come back and take out the full leg, and the completion of the move that we were talking about from here right around at the end of March will finally be completed, and we're aiming for target here, right? So keep in mind our overall structure is still high, low retracement continuation. Right now, whatever happens after we take liquidity or after we take liquidity here is going to be interesting, right? I don't think this is going to only just melt. I think we would see a type of pullback. Let's say we come in, I would like to see some type of pullback, right? And we're high, low retracement, right? Maybe induce a internal break of structure and internal continuation BOS, which would then incline us to continue lower. But anyways, right, let's pretty much discuss today's price action, right? There was a good setup on EU yesterday, but I'll tell you guys why I wasn't able to take it. Right, so essentially where we opened up on Sunday, let's see, right around here, right, immediately after we opened up, right, we gave a type of liquidity grab, momentum, right, lower momentum, and we gave a retracement to the upside with a continuation BOS in play, right? Eventually what you see is an internal break of structure, right? And we don't break the high after that. Let me make a line here. Right, we don't break structure immediately after that, showing an unwillingness to continue higher. So even though this is now technically liquidity, we cannot aim for it without proper justification, right? So all this is now in my eyes is unwillingness. Then we have an internal break of structure here, and then an overall break of structure down there, right? So we now have essentially the continuation leg of here, low, high retracement, continuation, right? The internal leg now is one full leg, because this is the full leg that took out that. So I'm seeing this as the entire leg, right? But at the time, right, of seeing this, right, we have an internal structure break. So this is now alerting me for potential signs of strength, signs of bullishness, even though our full leg is still bearish. So we have to consider internal structure before any type of continuation. So as you can see, right, this is the final push down before the final move up. I consider this continuation, right? So we came back into an M5 inefficiency, which you could see here, M5 inefficiency, right? And as we start to zoom in, right, we generated a reaction, right? How do we know we generated a reaction? Our final leg down, break of structure, continuation, right? But that then failed, right? Because that failed, right, and we broke the entire POI, this is now internal disruption. Internal disruption, right, generates a new leg. So this is also seen as showing its hand, right? Why? Because now I'm considering this taking of liquidity as a liquidity grab. That is not what I'm seeing it as, because keep in mind we are bearish based on high, low retracement, right? And just because we had the initial break of structure here of this final leg, this is still also just considered a continuation BOS, right? But when we start zooming in, this is actually a liquidity grab based on the internal disruption in play. So we now have a high, low retracement. As you can see, we came back into the PO, into a, I believe it was M2, M3 POI. M2 POI, and you could even see that we came into the wick there. Very interesting seeing that wick there. Not something that would have been realistic for me to play, right? But if you're actually playing this in terms of real time, right, it is 100% okay, right, to see this as a bullish break of structure, right? Even though that's considered counter trend, this is okay for this to be a bullish break of structure, and we now come into a discount, right? We're in this discount, right? A lot of people would have called this accumulation, right? Now you guys, this is another example of that scam 4 that a lot of people like to talk about, and it's in that PDF that is also in the Wyckoff, I mean in the document section. I don't agree with it at all. I don't think it's an actual Wyckoff concept. I think it's subjective, and as you can see, 1, 2, 3 drives, and then a 4th drive. This would be considered a break of structure, and with this being a spring test, I don't agree with it. I've never seen consistency with it, and as you can see here, it obviously failed, but it is okay to see this as the final push down being broken, and then you see any type of entry in a discount. So if you're actually paying attention to smaller time frame here, right, if we're looking at a potential reaction, right, we're seeing that liquidity is taken and then immediately taken out. So there is no POI here, but there is a liquidity grab in play, right? There's a liquidity grab in play. If we're looking at price, technically here and here are potential POIs, but obviously that didn't hit, right? So we took out the initial POI. That is now inciting a potential bearish move, but then as you can see, there's an internal break there, and now this could be seen as a liquidity grab, right? And we now see this as a bullish liquidity grab, and we now have a point of interest there. And if you want to be safe, you could even put your invalidation point there, but your invalidation point is technically here because this is the move that sparked the internal structure break out of the scalp break of structure based on low, high retracement continuation. So it is completely okay to take this trade here. That is completely okay, right? But if I were you, right, you always want to look at both perspectives, and I do see the internal disruption here in play. So as soon as we come back, if we're looking at character, right, efficient, 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 inefficient, efficient, 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 come back, make price efficient again, continuation, right? So even if you take a long position or a short position on EU based on whatever you see here, right, you also want to have that hedge because you want to make sure that you win. That's the most important thing, that you have a winning position, right? Because you can try for these 2 pip stops, 3 pip stops, 4 pip stops, but if you aren't winning a trade, you're only hitting break evens, then you're wasting your time, right? And is a break even a loss? Yes, right? A break even is a loss. So, right, considering that, right, this then creates a new structural range to the downside. All right, creates a new structural range into the downside. We then come back into an inefficiency. I believe that's on M1 too. Yep, M1 inefficiency. Right, unfortunately this didn't reach 50%, which would 50% would be up here. So even if you miss this, right, you can see that this move downwards does take out microstructure, and it even takes out scalp structure right here, right? So even though you missed this, there's still an inefficiency in play, with your point of invalidation being here, right? So this is very clean, very clear, right? You could see, right, order flow creates new low, order flow creates new low, order flow creates new low, strong order flow is in play, right? Okay, so now the hard part was trying to put this into EURUSD. How do you usually place your SL? I mean, this one, for one, I don't really play any efficiencies. That's the one thing. I always want to play a candle because a candle gives me a legitimate perimeter. Whereas if you want to take an inefficiency trade off of 50%, then naturally you have to put an SL here, right? Not an SL here, SL here. Right, so I personally, I wouldn't play this for one. I would play this, right? Because now I have a legitimate place to put my point of validation, and it's even more confirmation because we have internal disruption, new structural range, inefficiency bounce, and we have the mitigation of that. This is high probability to me. Right, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Let's see. So now the hard part, right, was putting this onto EURUSD. This was the hard part, right? And this is why I didn't trade Monday. This is what I was looking at. Or you can start from the 15-minute. Okay, so from the 15-minute, actually, let's go to the 30. So, right, as you can see, if we're looking at our overall picture, right, we see high, low, break of structure, continuation BOS, liquidity grab, because this then led to break a new high. So technically, we are currently bullish on the M15. Going down to the M15, we have an internal structural range here, right? Momentum is definitely to the upside, right? So immediately, right, we come back. I mean, after we start pulling back, we come into this inefficiency fill inside of a turbulence point. This is extremely hard to play. I personally didn't even get any positions in here because obviously the best position was at 1 p.m., which is 2 hours after overlap for me. Right, so as we can see, we continue higher, but taking any type of continuation here does kind of make a lot of sense if you're playing it in terms of London session. But obviously, if I'm trying to take this continuation here, there is a potential move there, but then there's also the fact that we had just immediately taken out structure. So this type of continuation could have only been read via order flow. Via order flow. So, right, as you can see, we have a clear break of structure, right? We have a continuation BOS, right? But we then have a bearish break of structure and then a bullish break of structure, right? So this potential move is now considered a liquidity grab here, right? We then continue lower. There's not really anything to play off of, so this would be hard for me to find a position. But as we come into session, which this was on Friday, right? We then have one final liquidity grab that then comes up to break structure, right? So your parameter is here, right? And that is a pretty big stop in my opinion. 23, yeah, it's about a 7 pip stop. So that's a bit unfavorable, right? But I more so cared to see if this move was willing to break the internal leg, which is exactly what happened during, during London session. So as soon as we break the internal leg, right, I'm now focusing on my internal structural range, the range that took out price, right? So now here was the tough part, in my opinion, about trying to take this trade. Even though we have a bullish structural break, we have an internal continuation BOS, even an internal continuation BOS up here, right? But continuation BOS, right? And we came back to mitigate a very, very deep POI, right? So this is a very, not the most probable type of scenario for me, especially because we're carrying so much momentum. So taking this is considered, in my opinion, breaching a low. I mean, trying to guess a low, because in reality, all this could be is a pullback initiation to then continue lower. So I need something, I need a reason, right, to want to take this higher. So even though this is a high risk entry, this is not necessarily something I would take. Is it okay for you to take? If it follows your rules, yes. So, right, what's important here to notice now is that, for one, we actually did come into one POI, right? But this is weak order flow in my opinion, right? 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, right? Potential unsupported move. And that is what generates one final move to the upside, right? But what's important for me here to notice is that we now are reacting from an internal wick, right? And this is now, if this is going to continue, it's going to continue now. Why? Because there's a POI, there is a very quick reaction, there is an internal structure break, as you can see based on this candle. And we could even zoom in for that in case you guys don't see that, right? Internal break of structure, right? And this even takes out right, previous liquidity. I see previous liquidity, not structure, because now after this immediately we see an internal disruption because a POI that generated a valid reaction was now taken out, right? So, and then we're inside the range still. So this is now bullish, right? And this is now my solidified low, right? And we're continuing structure, continuing structure, continuing structure, right? Continuing structure. And if we're looking at internal legs, right, I'm seeing this, took out that final, this is the internal leg, right, and then this is the first time we see a continuation. This is another part of the internal leg, which then generates higher movement, right? So I'm now seeing the entire leg low to high, right? And I now highlighted this point here, I believe it was M3, right? Because if we're looking at order flow, right, the final move to the upside here and then another continuation leg, that continuation leg, in my opinion, is usually always taken out. You guys should look into that. That immediately, that final leg in almost any type of structural range is usually taken out, because this is not a break of structure. This is a continuation BOS, or it could be the pullback initiation. Various ways to look at it. But anyways, the reason why I'm highlighting here is if I'm looking at order flow, right, this candle was mitigated here, right? That candle, actually, let me do this. Okay. So this candle was mitigated here, right? This candle is left over. As you can see, it wasn't tapped, right? But we now have a push down. So there's an SC potentially here, right? So I have my parameters set for here to here, because there is a potential SC here, and then there's also a potential another SC here that was not mitigated. So just to be sure of myself there, that would have been the parameter. But now you guys see the issue is that this happened 3 minutes before the new day open, right? That happened three minutes before the new day open. The spread is probably massive at this point, right? And the probabilities of the trade being successful at this time of day is not the best, just based on me, my research, my experience. So it's something I missed, but as you can see, it worked out very, very nicely, right? And we even gave another reentry today post London session, right? But once again, right, this is a very hard trade to take, because we're looking at a bearish break of structure, right? Potential mitigation, continuation. This is considered picking a low, right? So a very harder trade to take. unless you're really trying to pick this low by catching the pullback initiation of this high to low and then, you know, praying this goes higher, right? But that's not how we want to trade. Right, so basically not the cleanest start to the week. I think tomorrow we will see some opportunities, but right, I'm curious to see if we are going to come back down to this area, right, before we reach liquidity, or if we reach liquidity, I'm honestly not too interested here unless we get a proper reaction, right? Just because if we take liquidity and we try to get that continuation, it in my opinion, it doesn't really work out most of the time. I have taken a lot of losses because of that reason, and that's mainly because remember what we said in the liquidity video. Liquidity is essentially a driving force, right? Whereas if it's picked up, you know, it's essentially fuel to take you to the next liquidity point. So if we're taking a massive amount of liquidity, and I say massive because look at what this high generated, right? This high generated a 500 pip move and a internal disruption of the low and high. So this is there's a lot of volume carrying that move, right? A lot of orders carrying that move. So once that is taken out, right, we could even potentially see a discount come, you know? So I want to see what happens if and when we take this high out, and then from there we can judge, because honestly, now that we've taken this out, right, we have now experienced a internal disruption, right? But then we had an immediate push to the upside, so we are back to being bullish, and this is now our next target, right? So I'm very curious to see what happens immediately, or pretty much during the London session, just to see if we're going to take out liquidity or not just yet. Best case, we don't, and we see, you know, the initiation of the push down, right? And we could even see maybe a 50% or even a retap of structure. Right, kind of lines up. So it would be nice to see this before we reach higher, and that's easily a what, 40-50 pip move, 60, right? So other than that, haven't looked that much this week. AU was super sloppy as well, right? I didn't even mark this up. It was super sloppy up until London yesterday, just because if we're looking at structure, right, we have our final leg to the upside, but we have continuation BOS, continuation BOS, continuation BOS, and we have an internal bearish leg. And I'm not trying to sell this, you know, like I'm not bearish on this whatsoever. On top of that, all right, during Monday, we had already seen a reaction and a push down that actually broke the final leg to the upside. So it's already like, you know, I'm not really too attracted to this. Right, as you can see, where is it, the final leg? I believe it was this one, and that was taken out. And you know, trying to get any position after this is a bit hard for me, just because I'm not trying to pick a low and I'm trying to remain as conservative as possible. So not attractive whatsoever. GU, not attractive either, right? Just because we broke structure right after New York. So unfortunately, I wasn't looking at this, or else this could have been a good position, right? So actually, let's look at this now, right? Keep in mind, we're still bullish on this, right? Still bullish. Remember, we said that our target, right, our immediate target is previous high, especially if we were to continue this week. Right, inefficiency potentially, no. So this reaction, very iffy. But what's important to note, right, we have a continuation to the upside there. So we have our structural range be bullish, right, in terms of major intraday. Our minor intraday, low, high, is bullish as well. But, right, the tricky part here is during London, we had bearish order flow. Bearish order flow come into play. Right, and that gave continuation BOS, right? And even no reaction from a POI here. So technically this is bearish, especially if we're looking at momentum, right? But if you look at the reaction, right, this is this one's interesting here. Let me see, is Lewis on the call? Right, so I remember Lewis had asked me, no, he's not on the call. He had asked me about inefficient moves and why it's still an incomplete concept, right? But for example, if you go to M1 here, right, at this moment, I didn't see it as such, but I am looking at this as potentially, right, a mitigation that makes no sense, right? Even as we turn to the seconds time frame, right, just looking at this, potential even wick, right? As you can see, nothing is mitigated by this high. So all this is doing is grabbing liquidity to give you a downside move, but it is not mitigating anything. So it's hard for me to see this as a true move, right? So this could be seen as an inefficient move, especially, right? Because even though we're continuing lower, right, bearish volume is diminishing, even though we have a bearish break of structure present, right? But unfortunately, right, or fortunately, I'm sorry, right, we see a bullish break of structure. So this can now be seen as a liquidity grab, right? Because keep in mind, our overall leg is still bullish, right? So we now have one leg to the upside. We haven't taken out structure yet, but once again, right, look at where we took out one level of structure, even another internal level of structure that was just newly made, right, signifying this is unwillingness, right, meaning we now need volume to continue higher, which means that there is volume supporting this move, right? We also have an increase in demand, right? So even though we do mitigate something up here, right, this is where it gets a bit tricky. This mitigation, right, just because there's a mitigation in play doesn't mean you know the purpose, right? And the purpose of this, right, obviously after now that we've seen it, was to come back and give us a discount, right? And as you can see, we right potentially came to mitigate if we're looking at order flow, right? Wick here, wick, mitigated wick, generated longs, pretty much the new higher high, I'm sorry. And as you can see, it's a very deep retracement, but this is GU, and that is one of the tendencies I see with GU, deeper retracements. But as you can see, this reaction generated a ton of momentum, meaning it is valid. So a high risk entry is here, right? Whereas if you're looking for a more conservative entry, right, we now have a bullish break of structure here, right? We have an interruption in price, then a continuation higher, right? We now have a continuation BOS takeout, and then we now take out the final leg to the downside. So that shows bullish momentum, right? And if you wanted to take a position here with a point of invalidation being there, that is okay, right? If you wanted to move your SL, probably could have waited for the full scalp leg to be taken out, right? Because keep in mind, if your entry is right, price, even if price comes back, price will not take out your invalidation point. Right? Your invalidation point is very key because that is the invalidation of the bias, right? So even if you move your SL after here, and as you see, we did come to take liquidity, right? Just because this happened doesn't mean your entire bias is invalidated because the point of invalidation was not taken out, right? So I guess that's a little note for you guys. But as you can see, the more riskier entry was a 3.2, and the more conservative, right, which I'm looking at the wick with the point of invalidation being down here, is actually better. Yeah, it's about a 3. So it's a bit smaller of a stop, even though it's a more conservative entry. And this flew like 100 pips, right? So easy 30 to 1 on each scenario. Right, so unfortunately I was not looking at this time, right? But if not, that's a very, very nice setup. Right, so do you guys have any questions? Any questions, anybody? Here we go. Here we go. All right, let's see. I haven't looked at this at all this week. All right, so absolutely nothing, bro, since we've since this week has started. These are the markets from last week, I believe. All right, so keep in mind, bearish. You are bearish. Right, so I'm curious to see just off the bat, just what I see quickly with my eyes here. Right, I see this internal leg break. Right, that is in resonation with the previous high low. So now, right, let's see what happens. Right, I see order flow here. Right, mitigation. I mean, yeah, mitigation of inefficiency that made the final leg down. Up here, this could be a POI. Don't know if that's too. Don't know if that's too optimistic, but we'll see. Right, if this just pretty much something like that, that would make a lot of sense to me. Right, and you see volume come in during London, that would make a lot of sense. But this does look like if it's gonna move, it's gonna move during London. Right, so now obviously if we take this out, then you are now technically bullish, and this is now a sign of unwillingness. Why? Because we have a solidified high here, because we took out previous levels of structure, and it's now a high-low retracement. Right, so if this breaks structure, right, that is now bullish, and this is now your overall structural range, and you're now technically aiming for liquidity up here. Technically. Right? So what do you think?
Wouldn't you look at the premium pricing of that most recent leg?
Yeah, but here's the issue. Because this showed its hand, right? This showed its hand, right? So now the issue, how do I do this, man? Right, so the issue now is that this is now a solidified high. So even if we're now in a premium, right, this is technically bullish. So you'd be technically guessing a high if you're aiming for the premium. So if you wanted to take the premium, I would say that if we do have this bullish break of structure, I'd look for the bullish position, then I'd hedge with the sell, right? Because this is a medium-term position, whereas this is a long-term position. But if the medium-term position takes out the long-term position, and we do come out for liquidity, then this is now a very important entry, because you're now aiming for a lot of liquidity, and that is over 120 pips, and that pays off a lot on EG. Right, so the important part here to know is that we have the solidified high based on the structure breaks, and it's in correlation to the overall leg. So this type of move up here is considered picking a high from a minor intraday basis, even though the swing leg is bearish. Right, makes sense?
Yeah, it's kind of like what I struggle with the most.
Yeah, so it's all structure, bro. And just understand solidify. I still need to make that video. That's right. Solidify highs and lows. But if you're going to try to take a position, especially a swing position, because this would be a swing position if you're expecting it to come down here, right, is don't rush it. Don't try to force it, right? Just because you have an M1 continuation BOS off of an H4, H8 leg does not mean that you're going to get it first try, right? So you got to be optimistic. You got to be rational with yourself. So you can't be too optimistic. You got to be rational with yourself. My bad. Right, and I mean, even if you don't understand it, that's the whole entire point of order flow. right? Order flow and internal structure. That's pretty much deciding everything. But yeah, does anybody have any questions? It's all okay. Yeah. Also, I do have a question. Right. So now that all the YouTube content is out, it's kind of weird what direction I want to take with it, because I'm not about to sit here and do these pair breakdowns on YouTube. Fuck that. Honestly, fuck that. I'm good. Not only is that type of material super saturated, right, but the only way for me to teach something on YouTube charting wise is without me showing the order flow concepts. The order flow concepts are literally honestly probably the biggest difference maker, because I've never seen anybody understand order flow in that manner, and I'm not going to teach it on YouTube, right? So it's a bit weird, because if I hold back that information, which is very key, as you can see, to our, even this call, without the order flow rules, this call would have been nowhere near as easy to explain, right? So if I'd have to withhold information, it's because I don't want to share that, for one. And two, if I do it now, even while I'm withholding information, it's a bit tricky, because now it's literally going to be the same thing that every other SMC trader is trading. So it's just like, I don't see a point. I don't see longevity in that. So the objective, not the objective, but the route that I want to take with the YouTube is more lecture based. Like, for example, the first video I'm going to make on there is explaining why I uploaded the course, blah, blah, blah. Explain the RCV perspective, and explain the we'll explain the member perspective, and explain the community perspective in terms of, with the members, you guys got a new course, so it's a win-win-win in terms of business, community, and members. And whereas it's the community aspect, it's just like, obviously not everybody is willing and able to purchase RCV, so it's a good alternative, right? And then obviously, because the material is kind of different now, principally not still the same, but conceptually different, it could be a good prerequisite for the group. And especially because the webinars I've shown are literally about to be a year old, all of them, right? I think it's a good prereq. So what do you guys think about the direction I should take with the YouTube? Obviously nothing is going to change with you guys, but just opinions. Like, for I don't know, like, for example, the only ones I've had thought out so far are that one, the why. That's going to be the title of the video, is why. And then the second one was how to properly mark up a chart, right? Which is kind of like, that's a really like clickbait type of title, right? But in reality, there is no correct way to mark up a chart. So I could really bring a different type of perspective to that video. Day in the life? Fuck no. What the hell? I don't get how people do that. Like, I think that's really weird. Like, I'm super to myself. I'm super low key. I'm super to, like, you know, I don't associate with a lot of people, a lot of things. I literally just wake up, trade, look at DMs, go to the gym, get home, eat, maybe walk my dogs, right? Come back, look at charts, and now we're here on this call. Literally, like, what's special about that? Like, I'm not trying to do any of those videos that are like saturated, you know, like what everybody does, day in the life, how to like charting markups, where you're trying to pitch your platform by withholding information. I think I sound dumb as fuck doing that, if I'm being honest. What else do these YouTubers do? I don't know. I don't follow any of them. Like, just being honest, yeah. What do you guys think? Yeah, see, like that's like, I don't know, man. I like, my morality does not allow me to do that, you know? Like, how I made blah blah blah. What the fuck, like, do you not understand like how dumb you sound? And like, to the people that are enlightened by that, they're not serious individuals, if I'm being honest. $5 to 3K. How many tries does that take? Because you can't. I mean, being realistic, right? Flipping $5 on 1 to 500 leverage, right? The highest lot size you can probably put is like what, a 0.05, 0.10? No, 0.05 at best. Right, so I want to do something that's different. I want to be able to give information that is worth your time listening to. I also do want to start up doing a blog post on the website. Right, you guys know this part right here. I want to start making these. I think these would be super interesting. All right, flow. I'm gonna remake this one. Yeah, we might even just clear. I mean, I'll probably keep this. Right, but I'm probably gonna remake this one. The next one I'm gonna make is the 5R. Do you guys remember? Have I talked to you guys about the 5Rs? The 5Rs. Sorry. Have I talked to you guys about that? Yes or no? Or have you guys seen? I tweeted that like a couple weeks ago. Anybody? Haven't seen it? Let me show it to you real quick. Let me put it in the Discord chat. Actually, I'll put it in Mind Help. Actually, hold 1 second. I'll just post it here. I'll just post it in the group chat. Right here. This one. Alright, if you look at the group chat right now. Excuse me. This one right here. Right, so the title of this, right, I'm gonna post that right now on Twitter. What the title is. It's gonna be named the what do you guys think of the name though before I actually post it? Is the 5 Rs of Retrospect. That's what I'm gonna name it. Let me put it in the chat so you, in case you guys didn't listen. The 5 Rs of. That's the title of this. Right, so I'm gonna make like a blog post explaining this. Right, what do you guys think of that? I think it's a cool name. Yeah, so essentially, all right, so first we got to start off with what does a retrospect mean. Actually, let me open it on here. Right, so retrospect is a survey or review of a past course of events or period of time. Right, so it's a review. Okay, so like the perspective behind what this means, right, is, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'll read a book or I'll read something or I'll watch a video, or I will do something, right, and I'll forget it 10, 15 minutes later, a day later, a week later, right? So I can absorb it, but I cannot retain it, right? So in my opinion, to actually have something stay in your head, it's not just about memorizing, it's more so about understanding it. So if you read something, right, you retain it by memorizing technically, right? But then you can recapitulate, which means essentially, all right, so actually, so I don't chop up that, let me look up the word for you guys. Right, recapitulate means to summarize. Okay, so it's another way of summarizing. So you read, memorize it, understand it by summarizing, right? But when you refine it, you change it, you essentially make it make sense for you, right? That can give you a much more better chance of remembering something, right? So what's a good example of that? For example, applying a quote in real life, like for example, make it make sense, or principle over concept, or just anything like that. I remember those because I actually apply those, right? I've actually made sense out of it and applied it, right? So this has like potential for like a cool blog post, but you know, I'll see what I come up with. So I'm probably gonna do I'm gonna redo the flow one. I'm gonna make this one, and then who knows, just whatever I think is interesting. Right, whatever cool tweet I think about, I can just write a blog post about it if it's interesting. Like, I mean, another one, I mean, we just talked about one, which is anti-fragility. Right, which is pretty much, you pretty much have a downfall, have a pullback in life, and you fix it, solve it, whatever, and you end up better than where you were before, right? So pretty much learn through mistake. That's pretty much what that means. And I could make even a blog post on that. I think that's a pretty cool concept. Shit, the competitive advantages that require minimal talent, that's cool as fuck too. Cognitive biases. Balance, how do you balance effort and return? That's another cool one. See, like I can make so many blog posts out of these. But yeah, what do you guys think about that? And like it's not, I'm doing it literally for myself. Like I'm doing it because I want to be able to read something down the road or whatever, but obviously I'm sharing it with you guys because I share pretty much everything with you guys. Right, so you guys don't think anything of it? Cool. Ooh. Oh, you like it? Cool, cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like I could have a knack for writing if I actually started writing. But yeah, I think it's a cool idea. So, what do you guys think about the YouTube thing? That's pretty much what I care about. Like, what kind of topics would be like, I guess ideal? Yeah, I might not talk too much about principle over concept. Maybe just make a quick video on it because I actually want to do something with principle concept in the near future. I think I could make an entire platform off of principle over concept filled with like actual research. I think it'd be cool. Yeah, yeah, I mean, it was just free value at the end of the day. I'm not doing it for bread or anything. It's not like YouTube pays like that anyway. Yeah, and it's saturated, extremely saturated, right? So I'm now, if anybody decides to join RCV at this point, it's because they actually fuck with the group, you know? And then that trust usually makes them a lot more coachable, and the whole process is a lot easier and a lot more smooth. But yeah, I mean, other than that, does anybody else have any more comments, questions, concerns? Oh, I forgot. This week's call is going to be on Friday, not on Saturday. Because I'm busy Saturday morning. I got to be somewhere super early. Actually, I'm going to just tell you, I'm going to SneakerCon here in Dallas. And I'm going to be there really early. So I'd rather just do the call on Friday instead of canceling. Probably do it like in the morning. Maybe after overlap, right after overlap, who knows. But yeah, Saturday's call will be Friday morning. No. I don't know. We'll see. But it might be like an hour earlier, or if not, right at the time. But who knows? We'll see. Right. Hopefully I can get it for 10 a.m., which is an hour before, because I like to go to the gym at 12 on Fridays. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, it's for sure gonna be Friday morning. I just don't know if it's gonna be at 10 or 11. But yeah, other than that, do you guys have any questions, concerns, comments, ideas? You still play football? Yes, I do. I'm just like coming back from my injuries has been super hard, bro. Like for example, my feet are honestly fucked, straight up fucked. Like I've already had flat feet to begin with, so now coming back into playing is super hard in terms of like shin splints, foot pain, stuff like that. And then because I'm barely starting off too, I pulled my quad like 2-3 months ago. So it's been hard coming back, but yeah, I'm still playing. Nothing's if 5 surgeries couldn't make me quit, nothing's gonna make me quit, bro. What goes on at SneakerCon? So it's literally. Have you been to a convention before? Any type of convention? Which one have you been to? You can message me about that, bro. Message me about that. You can DM me about that. But Chris, what convention did you go to? Oh, you went to E3? Okay, cool. So think of SneakerCon as like a small E3, but for only sneakers, for only shoes, only streetwear attire. Right? So there is. Honestly, it's my first one, but if it's just like any other sneaker event, it's just a bunch of trading, a bunch of buying, selling. You're just moving shoes, and like the thing is like there's so many people coming from around the world that especially now, because this is like the first one, like this is like the second one where, you know, it's actually been like a legit sneaker con with, even after COVID. There's gonna be a lot of people, a lot of money's gonna be moved. So I have like a bunch of pairs of shoes I'm trying to sell, and then maybe hopefully flip some stuff while I'm there, and yeah, maybe just throw that money into cryptos or something, you know, who knows. Yeah, but there's so many fakes, but there's a lot of legit checking places, and like I'm gonna be with my friends are gonna have a table, so they know their shit, you know. Yeah, so it's super cool. Honestly, I'm kind of over sneakers though. Like I love the culture, but I don't really care to have a bunch of sneakers. I think it's pretty stupid at this point. But yeah, all right. So we will host our call on Friday, and yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys have any like ideas for the YouTube, I guess, let me know, and you know, we can get that going. But I'm not really too worried about the YouTube, or I'm more worried about these blogs than I am about the YouTube, right? But considering we did get like 2,000 subscribers in like a month, well, we got like 1,500 in like a month, but you know, I just think that I should continue it, see how far I can go. But yeah, I'll see you guys on Friday.